welcome students. So we are in the process of learning about the receivables management, and in the previous class I was talking to you about deciding the credit limit. So one thing is that we learned about is that working out the credit score, and after that if the borrower or maybe the customer or maybe any member of the channels of distribution, if they cross the desired score, say 4.5 we discussed in the previous class, in that case now the question arises, what should be the credit limit to him, how the credit limit should be decided. For deciding the credit limit, there is a problem that credit limit has to be in terms of the number of days, the credit period, and second thing is the order size. What should be the order size, up to what order size we should fulfill his demand, then let him sell the product in the market, return the sale proceeds of the order back to the firm, and then we can think of sending him the second order. So these are the two important things. So while sorting out this issue, two important issues were raised by the people, by the experts, and finally we have zeroed in on that the credit limit should be decided in two ways. There should be two credit limits, one is the information credit limit and the second one is the risk credit limit, and they are not mutually exclusive, they are interdependent, they are interrelated, they are interdependent. Information credit limit means when we decide about the repaying capacity of the borrower or maybe the buyer, number of factors are taken into consideration. One, we saw that we can calculate the score, and once somebody crosses the score, then we have to see his financial position. Maybe under the score we have already seen the financial position is good, but another important factor to be taken into account is the liquidity position of the buyer or the borrower. He is very good in financial terms, he is very good, his asset liability position is very good, his overall financial performance is very good, he is selling too much in the market, he is making a lot of sales in the market, he is earning huge profits, his overall performance is excellent in the market. But sometime even the best performing buyers or the players in the market are caught into a situation of the technical insolvency, and simply because of the lack of liquidity, because he has to make the payment on the due date. And it is a rule in the business world that say if X has to make the payment to Y after a period of 30 days, X is the manufacturer, is the buyer, and Y is the manufacturer. So Y is extending him the credit for a period of 30 days, and X has to make the payment to Y after 30 days because the credit period is 30 days. So always courtesy demands, discipline demands that he should make the payment. It is better for him, for the X to make the payment to Y, that he can make the payment on the evening of 29th or maybe 29th day. It is better to make the payment one day before, that is on the 29th day evening, rather than postponing it to the 31st day. For the buyer or maybe for X in this case, it may be a question of one day, that he is only delaying the payment by one day. How does it matter? I can make the payment today, I can make the payment tomorrow, it does not matter, it does not make a difference, but it makes a difference in the business world, because Y is depending upon that I will receive this payment from X and I will make the payment further to my supplier, so that supply of the raw material and other inputs remains continuous and there is no interruption in the manufacturing process. So because of the problem created by the X buyer in this case, funds could not reach up to Y, that is the manufacturer, and finally the funds could not reach to the supplier, Y is supplier, right. So this disturbs the total symbiosis, this disturbs the total synchronization. One is depending upon the other is depending upon the other, there is a chain. So if there is one channel in the chain does not work well, then the all other channels get disturbed. So there is a discipline, financial discipline, which is demanded in the manufacturing world or in the business world, that always stick to the date and make the payment on the due date. So when we have worked out a score that only financial position was taken into account, we have not thought about that whether he is having a sufficient liquidity or not. For that purpose, even that is a case with the banks also. When the banks decide the CC limit, when banks decide the CC limit, they also demand certain liquidity ratios. And in the liquidity ratios, we have already seen that 3 important ratios. There are many liquidity ratios, but at least 3 liquidity ratios are also worked out by the bank, and in that case current ratio is the most important ratio for the banks. And banks also want some cushion because they are lending the funds without any kind of security, without any kind of collateral. So banks want to make sure that as and when the payment will be due to be made by the borrower to the bank, the borrower has a sufficient liquidity, and for that they demand the current ratio should be more than 1. Earlier it was 2:1, but now it is 1.33:1. So when the firms, manufacturers look at the deciding of, or they work out the credit limit, they depend upon certain information, and that information is about the liquidity performance or the liquidity position of the buyer. He is very good financially, but what is his liquidity? On that particular day he might not have the funds to pay to the manufacturer, so he disturbs the total symbiosis. So in that case the credit limit is decided in terms of information credit limit, and information credit limit says that look at the liquidity, you work out the liquidity ratios of the borrower and think about what is his current ratio, what is his quick ratio, what is his cash ratio. So if it is within the given rules of thumb, say for example the manufacturer also demands the current ratio has to be more than 1. So in that case he is sure about that the total current assets are not being financed from the current liabilities. He is financing from the long term sources also. So it means at any point of time, if any current asset is not convertible into cash, he will have the funds from the long term sources, so he can make our payment. So on the basis of that, or similarly you talk about the quick ratio and the cash ratio. So similarly we take the decision on the basis of this information limit, that if say if some firm is, or some borrower, some channel member, distribution channel member is having a good liquidity and having a good overall financial position is also good, liquidity position is also good, and he is not solely depending upon the supplies from the manufacturers, but he is investing his own funds also in the process, then there is no problem. Then you can decide the credit limit on the basis of that information, financial information, liquidity information, little on the higher side. But if that means financial position is good but the liquidity position is not good, then we will have to think about while deciding the limit. This is the information limit. Second limit is the risk credit limit. Risk credit limit is in terms of the order size. Normally when we work out the information limit, information credit limit, we saw that he has a good liquidity, he has the sufficient funds with him and he can make the payment on due date to the firm, so there is no problem. But that information limit was decided for a particular level of, or for a given level of the order. Say for example every month we will be supplying 10 color TVs to a retailer, or maybe 50 color TVs to a retailer. That is his normal order size. If he buys 50 color TVs from the firm Samsung on credit for a period of 30 days or 45 days, so it means he has the capacity of selling those 50 color TVs in the market during that period of 45 days in the market, and immediately on the 45th day or 46th day morning he can remit the payment to Samsung. So that information is fine, that is decided, that limit is decided on the basis of the liquidity and the financial performance and the information which the company has gathered. But if the order size increased, if the company says he is doing very well, he is excellent distributor, he is excellent retailer in the market, let us increase his credit limit from 50 color TVs to 100 color TVs. So what will happen now? That is called as a risk credit limit. Now the company, the manufacturer itself is taking a huge risk. They have increased the order size, means the borrower also placed the order and company also agreed to the order size. This batch size they have increased, so company also started supplying him not 50 color TVs a month but 100 color TVs a month, and there comes the problem. He has a capacity to sell 50 color TVs efficiently in the market, but for selling 100 color TVs in the period of again 45 days may be a problem. So in that case, even he does not want, the distributor or the retailer or the customer does not want to default, he want to make the payment on due date, but he could not sell all the 100 CTVs in the market. So, and if he does not have his own resources also to make the payment back to Samsung, so in that case what will happen? There is the situation of default. Despite the fact that the channel member does not want to default, despite the fact that company is also clear about his financial and liquidity position, but because of the increased order size, that much of the liquidity was not maintained by the retailer, and he defaulted in making the payment back to the company. So, company got the payment for 50 CTBs on the due date, but for the remaining 50 the payment is blocked. So, we have to decide the limit taking into account, first thing is you work out all kind of financial and liquidity information about the customer or the potential buyer, decide the limit, and that limit will be for a given order size. So, the risk level is calculated, but as the order size from the buyer increases and company exceeds to the request, so at that level company is taking the extra risk. For that level we have to work out the again a new limit. Therefore, 50 CTVs, yes, we are okay, but for the 100 color TVs you have to improve your liquidity position. Then your current ratio will not work as 1.3, you will have to keep the current ratio as 1.5, or you have to have multiple resources, or your cash position must be very good. You keep more amount as cash, so you improve your cash and marketable securities, short term marketable securities position, and you keep more asset into the cash or the near cash form. So, you have to ask him to improve before raising his risk credit limit or raising the order size or accepting the increased request for the order size. We will have to ask him to improve his liquidity position, so that that risk the company is going to take is not the risk and he is able to make the payment on the due date. So, this way we decide the limits, that is the information credit limit and the risk credit limit, and before that a score we have to work out which is going to facilitate to have a written credit policy. Now, we proceed further with the next part, and that part is some goals and functions of accounts receivables management. Functions of accounts receivables management. When we manage the accounts receivable, we have to take into account certain other important things. Number 1 is the credit terms, number 2 is opportunity cost, and third one is receivables at the cost or at the sales price, right. Credit terms now is an important question. When you talk about the credit terms, what are the credit terms? Normally we have two credit terms. Credit terms include, here we have two credit terms. Credit terms, one is credit period and second is the credit period and second is the cash discount. These are the two credit terms. Credit period, we have to decide very carefully the credit period to be given to the different buyers. Normally in the business language we write the credit terms like this: 2/10, net 30. This is the credit term. What does it mean? 2/10 net 30, what does it mean? That I will discuss with you. But two important terms are, one is the credit period, second is the cash discount. Normal credit period, for example in India the normal credit period in the electronics or in the manufacturing sector, and that too in the electronics sector, is say 45 to 60 days but that is the normal credit period. For the buyers who have the normal standing, for the manufacturers who have the normal standing in the market. For the firms who are excellent performers in the market, for example these multinational companies Samsung, Sony, LG you talk about, they are excellent performers in the market. They may not agree to this credit period, they will say we will give you the minimum credit period and our credit period is say 30 days. You have to, if you want to do the business with us, you will have to sell our material in the market within a period of 30 days only. That maximum is 30 days, nothing else. After 30 days they are as a security. These companies as a security from the retailers or from the any bulk buyers, they ask them to say provide the advance checks to the companies, and the credit period is 30. Company has supplied for example 100 color TVs to one retailer, and for a period of 30 days, on the 30th day whether he has sold those CTVs in the market or he has not sold those color TVs in the market, company will present his check in the bank and they will collect the payment from his account. Standard. Second option they can give, that normal credit period we are giving you is 30 days, but if you want to say earn more while doing business with us, we can give you some cash discount, but in that case you will have to remit us the payment on the 10th day. So it means in that case we will reduce your credit period, but we will give you discount of 2%. And you see, in the business language, discount earned is the cash earned. Discount earned is the cash earned. So many retailers and many a times they take it very seriously, that if I am able to sell the product, push the product in the market at the reduced credit period, I will be able to increase my return on sales or my return on investment, and I am getting the credit, for example, for a period of 10 days, not 30 days, but I am getting the cash discount of 2%. So it means if I have to pay 10 rupees to the company, I am ending up paying only 8 rupees, so 2 rupees are directly coming to my pocket. So nobody would like to allow that discount to be foregone and to be not to be enjoyed. So this is a very important term. So credit terms, credit period, normal credit period and cash discount, if both are to be given, if only one has to be given, then you can say normal credit period is 30 days. But if you want to enjoy the cash discount, then the credit period will be 10 days. So for example, I have written here 2 by 10 net 30. 2 by 10 means normal net 30. Net 30 means normal credit period is 30 days. But if you make the payment to us within 10 days, you will be given 2% discount. So 2 by 10 payment within 10 days, 2% discount. But if you are not able to enjoy that discount, if you do not want to have that discount, then you have to make the payment to us on 30th day. So these are the two important credit terms which everybody has to be careful about. Then we talk about some other things. Opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is again an important part while deciding the credit sales or the limit of the credit sales or the credit to be given. Opportunity cost is the one which the seller has to take into account and the buyer also has to take into account. Buyer has to take into account the opportunity cost. We have discussed in the previous class that say 2 classes back in the past, that as we have seen the marginal cost consideration. Marginal cost consideration means is that what is his opportunity cost? His opportunity cost is, say that he is borrowing from the bank, he is paying a particular rate of interest to the bank, but when he is borrowing from the supplier or maybe manufacturer, he is paying the higher rate of interest to the supplier. So it is better for him to borrow from the bank and make the payment and to enjoy the only credit period where the interest charged by the manufacturer or by the supplier is lesser than the bank rate. This is from the buyer's point of view, but for the manufacturer also is a $1 million question. They have to be very carefully look at the opportunity cost. What is the opportunity cost for the seller? See, we talk about investing the surplus funds in the credit sales. When firms seek or the manufacturers seek a cash credit limit from the banks, banks also decide the cash credit limit and in total first, and then they divide into the different current assets. This much of the CC limit you can invest in the inventory, this much of the CC limit you can invest in the credit sales, this much you can use as cash, this much you can use as for making the advance payments, all these. So here opportunity cost, that whatever the surplus funds maybe from the bank or from his own resources the manufacturer has, first he would sell on cash. After that he would think that remaining to expand my market, the remaining production can go to the market on credit, and I know that if I am going to sell on credit, I am going to load my credit sales with the interest factor. Now how much that interest factor he can load the sales with? Normal, there is a standard percentage in the market, there is a standard rate in the market. Now for example, the normal loading factor is, we have been discussing in the previous class, is say 2% per month or 24% per year. Now here if he is investing his surplus funds in the credit sales by extending the credit to the different channels of distribution or to the customer, he is earning 2% per month, or maybe if it is the credit period of say 2 months, then he will be earning 4%. That is the opportunity cost for period of 2 months. Annual is that is 24%. But say his otherwise opportunity cost is high, because if he invests that surplus funds in any other investment avenue, for example in the stock market, for example he maybe on say any other asset or any other investment, he earns 30%. So I think he would be very serious that he would only limit the credit, that I will give you this much of the credit, this much of the sales on the credit, and loading factor since it is 24%, so I will be loading with 24%. But if you want to have more sales on the credit from me, you have to pay me the interest at the rate of 30% per annum, and in that case that will increase to 2.5% per month. So if now the buyer is ready to pay 30% per annum rate of interest or 2.5% per say month, then he would extend the credit beyond that level also, otherwise he will restrict the credit. He should restrict the credit, because his earning by investing the surplus funds in the other avenues is 30%, investing in the credit sales is 24%, but he has to invest in the credit sales also, because market has to be served both in cash as well as in credit, so that is fine. But opportunity cost is an important component, and we have to see here that if we are having the better opportunities to invest the funds elsewhere, then we should go for that after selling for a minimum amount of the credit sales or selling on credit. But if it is not there, then yes, then we will have to think about that our credit terms can be little lenient, or say we can have the say loose credit policy, or say you can call it as some relaxed credit policy, that can be possible. But if the opportunity cost of selling on the credit is high, then the credit policy has to be tightened. Third important function of the say receivables management is, and it is a very important question, it is a $1 million question, that is valuing the receivables at the cost or the selling price. At what should be valuing the account receivables while talking about the investment in the receivables, of which we are talking about the opportunity cost. What cost of what? Cost of say opportunity cost of the cost of the production or the sales value. Now there are two schools of thought. One school of thought says that in the receivables we are investing only the cost of production, not the profit. There are two components. One component is the, when you are talking about the receivables total sales value, when you are talking anything in the sales value, it has the two components, cost of production COP plus the margin or the profit which the firm is keeping. Now I am not investing as a manufacturer the margin, I am investing only the cost of production. Cost of production in terms of material, in terms of labor, in terms of other overheads, in terms of other overheads. So these are this, maybe they are the direct or and indirect, direct and the indirect overheads. This is the investment I have made. For example, a one product or one color TV which Samsung is selling in the market for say 20,000. The cost of production of that color TV is say 15,000. So it means while selling that color TV in the market, he is investing, or for selling that color TV in the market on credit, he is investing only 15,000, he has not invested 20,000. So should he value his receivables, the credit sales he is making in his own records for the analysis purpose, 20,000 or at 15,000? Because here the cost is 15,000 and selling price is 20,000. 20,000 selling price includes the profit of 5,000. Now but this profit has not been invested by him. So should he think about it also while calculating the cost of the funds invested in the credit sales? Now let us discuss it in some detail. The logic here is that when we manufacture a product and product goes to the market, we sell it on cash, it is converted, product is converted into cash and the operating cycle is complete. Your operating cycle is complete here. But when we manufacture the product, it is not possible to be taken to the market on cash, it has to go to the market. If it has to go to the market, it has to go on credit, otherwise it will have to be kept in the warehouse. So you are having options like either you will have it as an inventory or you will have it as another current asset, that is the credit sales. So either it will not be converted into cash, right. So if it is not possible to be converted into cash, so what will be, either it is inventory in the warehouse or it is the accounts receivable, and in both the cases you are not getting the cash. Here also you are not getting the cash, only it is a conversion of one current asset into the another current asset, which is certainly not cash. So here first we talk about the inventory. When if you keep it as an inventory, we are keeping it as an inventory with us and inventory is inventory. But if we are converting, passing on that inventory to the channel of distribution in the market, to the distributor, wholesaler or retailer, again he is not paying us back in cash, so he will also keep the product until unless it is sold in the market. So we shifted that inventory to the channel's place, and again that is an inventory, but it is gone out of the books and place of the manufacturer to the books and place of the channel of distribution, but it is still not converted into cash. Now question, people who say that the receivables should be valued at cost, they say that since inventory is being valued at the cost or the selling price, whichever is the lower. We have a standard rule, because of the convention of conservatism in the accounting, we value always, this is a standard rule that inventory should be valued at the cost or the selling price, whichever is the lower. So why not accounts receivables? Again the accounts receivables is also the converted form of the inventory. Had you not passed it on to the channel's warehouse, then you could have retained it in your own warehouse as a manufacturer, so then it would have been called as inventory. So if it is converted from the accounts say inventory to the accounts receivable, still it is inventory, so it should be valued like inventory, so it should be valued at only cost, and the logic for that is that the manufacturer is investing only the cost part, not the profit part. But there is another school of thought who say that see, profit also has the opportunity cost. If for example had we sold the product on cash, we would have realized the entire amount, and that 20,000 would have come to the manufacturer, to Samsung, and they could have reinvested that for manufacturing the say other number of the color TVs. So it should be valued at the selling price. And some time back RBI also had the stipulation, and it was a guideline to the banks, that while you are providing the working capital finance for supporting credit sales or say for creation of the accounts receivables by manufacturers, the accounts receivables should be valued at the selling price, not at the cost price. To help the manufacturer to seek more credit from the banks, he should be asked to calculate, or bank should accept his calculations on the selling price of the accounts receivable, or the accounts receivables should be valued at the selling price, not at the cost price. So that was the one direction or the guidelines from RBI, but recently the RBI has withdrawn this direction to the banks. Now it is left to the banks that what is to be done, whether they want to consider it on the cost price or on the selling price, that is between the borrower and the lender, that is between the firm, the manufacturer and the bank, but both the schools of thought are valid and they can be accepted. So some firms can value it at cost, some firms can value it at the selling price, both way it has to be accepted by the banks, and the firm also has to apply a logic here. See, when you are talking about the logic to be applied here, people have to think about that, say what is the opportunity cost of that profit which we are investing elsewhere. So for example, if we sell the product on cash, we get the cash back immediately, that is the cost plus profit, and that total sale proceeds are investable either into the next lot of the production and again the new accounts receivables, or somewhere outside the firm, and that is going to give us the sufficient or the say handsome amount of the return. So they have to think about that what is my total cost of say making these credit sales, including the financial cost and the handling cost, and if I value it at the cost price, then how much return on that extended credit or those increased credit sales is there, means how much is the return on the credit sales, what is my cost while considering the investment at the only cost price, and what is my cost while considering the investment at total cost plus the profit both. Then he has to compare those cost at the cost of production, cost of funds as the cost of production, means cost of investment as at the cost of production level and the cost of investment at the total selling price level, and then he has to compare with the return on sales of those credit sales available. If in both the cases the return on sales is higher than the total investment cost, then there is no problem to decide whether you value it at the cost or you value it at the selling price. Always it is a profitable proposition because selling price is very high. But if the decision is different, that if you are valuing at the investment cost at the cost price, then it is a profitable proposition. But if you are valuing it at the selling price, so investment will increase, cost will increase, return on the sales remains the same, so it will become a negative proposition. So that depends upon that practically in the market what happens, what is the cost, what is the investment. Different firms have to take their different decisions and arrive at whether to extend the credit sales, whether to loosen the credit policy, relax the credit policy or not. That will depend upon the situation in the market. Now how to take that kind of decisions and how to compare the investment cost with the return on sales and some other important related issues, I will discuss with you with a small example or small situation we will have the information about in the next class. Thank you very much.